Hello, the name is Osvaldo Antonio Nyaka, and today we're going to be just talking about the concepts that govern human behavior. I normally shoot these once a week, and the purpose of these videos is to talk about the dynamics that run human behavior. And in speaking about these, I'd love to introduce certain principles that not only help you relate differently to the world, but in essence, the main aim of this video is for you to have a higher state of consciousness or a higher expression of yourself, and to use these principles to better your life in a certain way. In no way am I saying that these principles are the only principles in existence, but I just love to share what I learn and the principles that do make a difference and stand the test of time. Today we're going to be talking about a very inspirational topic, which is all about transcending labels, going beyond emotions, and getting yourself to the synthesized feelings. And as we go on with the video, you just get to learn about different techniques that I normally would use with a client or in my teachings with a group of people that I would teach. And part of these teachings come from the DiMartini method itself. And we're just going to build on it, understand where labels come from, where emotions are, and also what synthesized feelings are. Let's first start off by understanding what a label is. A label is a judgment that you could have on someone, something, or a specific event that has happened. Then the label is normally driven by an emotional perception or an emotional bias. So you see that once you get into the emotional side of things, you get this emotional bias that something is either good or bad, either something is supportive or challenging. So the label comes from the emotion that you might have at a specific moment in time, or a specific judgment that you have on an event as it is occurring. And these usually have two sides to it. Either it's a supportive or a challenging emotion. If you perceive that the event that you're experiencing or the thing that you're going through is challenging, you're going to have an emotional response to it or an emotional judgment that labels that event as challenging. But if the opposite were to occur, where you see that the event or the action that is happening is supportive, you're going to have an emotional supportive towards the event. And these two perceptions of either support or challenge then go towards the perception of either pain or pleasure. Then when you get to the pain or pleasure center point of the experience of the event, then you either seek or avoid to want to repeat one or the other, or avoid one and repeat the other. So you seek one, avoid the other. So you would seek the support, avoid the challenge. Now, when we judge these events, it goes back to what I always love to talk about, which is always about your hierarchy of values. Now, your hierarchy of values determine how you perceive the world, how you act in the world, and how you actually make your judgments on things that happen, whether they are supportive or challenging, painful or pleasurable. Let's suppose that you've got person A. And in person A's hierarchy of values, they have sports at the top, then they've got business, then they've got social as a third value. Then as we go all the way down in their value structure, you find that academics is a thing that they do not focus on. They've got the highest challenges in, and it's a thing that they don't have ordered in their lives. So if you ask the person to do something academically, they might perceive that as a challenging activity or a challenging perception to their hierarchy of values. Suppose this person goes to school and straight after school, when school is done, they go and they play sports. They don't focus on their homework, or they don't focus on anything that we perceive as academic to their performance or to their hierarchy of values. And they focus on sports. They want to play sports. They're focusing on sports. And that's where they have the highest order. You ask them anything around sports, they'll answer you straight away. They'll even tell you and go more into details. They could even give you a 7-hour long speech around sports. And that's what they want to do. Now, suppose one afternoon or one day, this person is playing sports and they have a coach. And the coach tells them to do a specific thing on the sports field. For the sake of this example, to make things simple, let's suppose this person is playing football or soccer. Depending on where you are in the world, you might label the sports either football or soccer, but let's name it football. And this person is then playing football. So the coach then comes in and says, well, I need you to do a specific movement on the field in a certain way. If the individual has a perception that what the coach is telling them to do is a challenging instruction, the label that they will have there is, this coach is challenging. He's challenging me and he's trying to control me. And let's suppose that that's the label. The label is, the coach is controlling. And they label that event as controlling because the coach has asked him to do something in a specific way. The label then there stands as controlling. Suppose then the student or the person A decides, well, I'm not going to do that because this coach is trying to control me. Then on the other side, you have the coach who's running the team, whose instructions has not been heard or not listened to, and his label then on the person is, this person does not listen. So you see that you have these two conflicting labels. The one labels the one as, this person doesn't listen, he doesn't listen, and the other says, well, this person is trying to control me. And these labels block out the expression of a synthesized feeling. Now, the synthesized feeling, according to Dr. DeMartini's work, is we have 6 of them. The first one, or the highest one, actually being love. The second one being gratitude. The third one being inspiration. Then we've got presence, certainty, as well as, I always forget the 6th one, but it always comes back to me whenever I talk about them individually and rehash them. Let's look at them again. Again, I love making mistakes on video because then it allows me to laugh so that you don't see that I always display the trait of being serious all the time. The first one is love. Love, again, if we had to define love, and I actually love this definition of love. Love is a synthesis of support and challenge. So the moment you're able to synthesize a challenge and a support, you actually get the true definition of love. Love is not a one-sided emotional state that you're looking to be in. Love is a synchronicity of polar opposites, them being support and challenge. Then the second one is certainty. What certainty is, it's the synthesized feeling of, no matter what happens, I will fulfill my mission in life. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'm certain that the action that I'm taking today will lead to me accomplishing what I want to accomplish. Then the third one is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is not about the person who's always jolly, always up and down, and shows that, oh, I'm the happiest person, I'm jolly. Enthusiasm is actually the driving force behind your motor functions. It's someone who's on the board, says, okay, what's the task that I'm going to do? This is the task that I'm going to get done. Focuses on the task, gets that task done, and then moves on. So it's the motor movement of the individual that they're expressing. And the enthusiasm is that. It's a person who, when your body feels like, I'm going to get this done. Then the fourth one is then inspiration. Inspiration is the gas, as you would say, or the petrol that runs the car. The inspiration to do something, the inspiration where you actually see that goal in your mind. You see the end goal of what it would look like. In this scenario, it could be that the inspiration point behind what the activities of the sportsman and the coach are doing is they win a trophy at the end. They're inspired by wanting to win a trophy at the end. And if the trophy does not come, they are still inspired to want to carry on and playing football. So they don't only look at the wins and the losses, but they look at the journey. They're inspired to do what they want to do. Whether the support comes or the challenges come, they are inspired to want to do what they want to do. So now that's 4 of them. And the fifth one we're going to look at then is I sometimes even lose track of my mind. Don't worry, but I'm going to keep you here with me. Then the fifth one is presence. Presence is all about being here and now, being able to control your environment, being here and now where your mind does not wander. It doesn't wander in terms of time, and time seems to disappear. And you actually find that when you're living according to your highest values, you're able to be present. And in being present, time just disappears. Whereas if you do the things that are lower down on your values, time seems to increase. And the reason for that is because in your highest value is where you're most inspired and you're able to take both support and challenge. Then, so we spoke about love, gratitude, certainty, presence, as well as inspiration, and then certainty as well. These synthesized feelings need you to transcend the emotional labels that you might have. So if we go back to the label that the person might have on the coach, where he's saying that, well, the coach is controlling, and that label then falls on the coach. So what would happen is with the student or the soccer player is if he carries on to label the coach as controlling, what he's doing is he's deflecting from his own moments where he was controlling. In the DeMartini method, the first step is all about reflection. In the reflection phase of the reflection question process, in the DeMartini method, it's all about getting you to a consciousness of reflection where what you see in the world is a reflection of you. And Arthur Schopenhauer said this very beautifully, that human beings, as human beings, our highest state of consciousness is a reflective consciousness. And Aristotle, who built on that, then came and told us that everything around you is you. So everything that's happening in the world is a reflection of you. And the reason why we have labels is because we're deflecting what's happening on the outside to our true selves on the inside. So the moment where the student is labeling the coach as controlling, he's deflecting and not owning where in his own life or his own dynamic, he has expressed that label of actually being controlling. So the first step in there that those students will have to go do is own the trait. Owning the trait where, when, and where they've displayed the trait of being controlling. And if we look hard enough and ask them, when and where have you been controlling in the 7 areas of your life, would find that the individual has been controlling somewhere along their life. And if we go to the coach, then ask the coach, when and where have you not listened in your own dynamic and own that dynamic to the same degree that you're judging the person that you're saying does not listen. And the moment they're able to reflect and see that they actually have that trait of not listening as well as being controlling, and they're able to own it 100%, then the label is now no longer an external label, but instead it's an internal label where you say, oh, I actually see where in my own life and in my own dynamic, I demonstrate this label that I have on the other individual of being controlling or not listening. And once you're able to own that trait, it now becomes part of you, and you're able to now say 100%, I own this trait all the time. And others have actually seen me doing this trait. Then the second step to that would actually have to go in there and see where if we perceive that the label is a challenging label, we would actually go in and see when that person demonstrated that label, that the person is then judging, or the emotional perception of it, of the person being controlling. How did that person at that specific time, when they demonstrated that trait of being controlling, how did it actually serve me and help me in my highest value structure? So the sports person or the student would go in and say, oh, the moment that the coach was being controlling, perhaps that was the moment where I stood up for myself. And in standing up for myself, I learned how to speak up, and in being able to speak up, I gave my different perspective to the coach to say, no, this is not the way that I see we can win or get a favorable outcome in the game. Not to say that the favorable outcome was either good or bad, but at that specific moment, what were the benefits or of that coach demonstrating that trait at that specific moment? And when you find the benefits with the timeline, you add on and add on and add on those benefits. You find that that trait at that specific moment served the individual. By finding out how it served them, perhaps they even went on to win the game. Perhaps by him controlling him at that specific moment allowed him to see a different dynamic to the game, and him seeing a different dynamic allowed him to grow in his sports journey. And once you're able to go in there and see the benefits of how it actually served you, you're then able to see that, oh, when this person challenges me, there's benefits to it. And the moment you own that and come to that realization, then you transcend the label that this trait is always bad when being demonstrated. And you get to the state where you see that whether this trait is demonstrated or not, it's my perception that is running my experience of this trait that's happening within the event itself. Now, when you go through the whole DiMartini method, you'd actually get to the end where you actually get to ask a specific question of if at that specific moment the coach had acted differently in that would have supported you in that specific moment, what would have been the drawbacks? And you actually get to go into the fantasy and see that even within the fantasy itself, there would have been drawbacks if the individual was supporting you or the coach was supporting the student. There would have been drawbacks to the benefits that they received at the current moment when the coach was being challenging. I know it's a bit of a mind stretch because our minds have been designed in such a way that we either see something as either positive or negative. So when I introduce you to this method, I'm actually just challenging you to see things from both sides. That mirror effect, where you actually get to see where the support and the challenge are equal. These are the equal dynamics that you can't separate. So the moment you go into the fantasy and find the drawbacks in the fantasy, you will actually get to see where the balancing points are in there. So with the trait where perhaps the student says, well, I wish the coach was not so controlling and gave me freedom to play that I wanted to play. Well, if the coach gave him freedom to play the way they wanted to play, perhaps the drawback of that is they wouldn't have played as a team. The moment he played free, they wouldn't have won the game because the coach's job was to get them to play as a team. That would have been one of the drawbacks. But of course, the student can add on to that and get to see that, oh, these would have been the drawbacks associated with that fantasy that I'm having. And once you go through the 7 questions for the challenging and as well as the 7 questions on the other side, and this will be for the support labels that you might have. Once you go through all of these, then you get to that state of synthesis, the state of equanimity, and this is the state where you're not run by the outside world, but instead you're run from the inner mission. And the inner mission of getting things done is not being run by what's happening on the outside world. It's just focusing on what the end goal or what the life's mission is. If the life mission is to play sports and get better playing sports, you're not run by the wins and the losses, but you're run by the expression of getting to live out that life of playing football or soccer. Now, this principle can be applied to all the other areas of life. Again, it's all about identifying what the label is. If the label is a negative label, you go in, you say, okay, this is the emotional charge that I have towards it. This is the negative to it. And if the label is positive, you then say, okay, this is then the positive trait or the positive label that I have. Then go in there, own that trait that you're judging in the label, either to yourself or others, so you actually see that you display this trait. And you've been displaying this trait and others see it. If it's a positive trait, see how when the person did it or when you did it, what were the positives from that moment on until today. If it's If it's a negative, so if it's a negative, find out the positives. If it's a negative, find out, no, if it's a positive, find out the negatives. And then if it's a negative, find out the benefits that you had. And then go in there and see what the fantasy would have been if you're judging it to be a negative. Find out if the person had done the opposite or you had done the opposite, what would have been the drawbacks to that fantasy that you imagined. And if it's a negative, go in there and then find out, well, the benefits to the nightmare. What would have been the nightmare if the person actually didn't behave the way that they'd behave, or they gave you that fantasy that you think about. What's the fantasy to it? What would have been the nightmare to it if the person, instead of being negative, they were positive to it? What would have been the drawbacks or the nightmares to that? So it's all about being able to find balance, because the ancient Greek, one of my favorite philosophers, Heraclitus, he went on to state that all reality is made up of opposite forces. He went on to say that the road is both up and down. And if you're able to own this dynamic in your own life, you're able to transcend these emotional labels. And being able to transcend these emotional labels allows you to express the highest form of being a human being. And I believe that the highest form of being a human being is the expression of love. And love, according to my mentor, Dr. DiMartini, is the synthesis and equilibrium of corresponding opposites. And that's the synthesis of what support and challenge. And once you're able to own the dynamic of the supports and challenges, you're able to transcend the labels that you have and express that highest form of love. Thank you.